Your Humanities Half Hour is brought to you by the Northern Marianas Humanities Council.
Hafidades and Biro, welcome to Your Humanities Half Hour. I'm Catherine Perry Harris, and today we're talking about a special project entitled War in the Pacific, A Difficult Heritage. And here with us today is no stranger to the Northern Marianas, Dr. Jennifer McKinnon, the project leader, and also Dr. Anna Froula, co-leader of this project. They're both with East Carolina University. Welcome back to Saipan, and Anna, welcome for the first time.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
So tell us, what is this project all about? War in the Pacific, A Difficult Heritage.
Okay, well, it's a program that was funded by the National Endowment for Humanities, and the program was dialogues on the experience of war. So it's looking at how veterans experience war and talk about war, and using humanities subjects to explore that, because war is a universal concept. All of us are sort of touched by it in different ways, veterans more specifically. But it is to kind of explore war across the ages. So from the Spanish Chamorro War, which is part of the content, to World War II and beyond. We're training up the discussion leaders, and this week, we're actually going to be running the discussion program. Everybody's invited. It's specific for veterans, and so we're looking for veterans to come out, but we also are looking for families of veterans and World War II survivors and families of World War II survivors to come out.
And the great thing is it's going to be in the evenings, so it's a very convenient opportunity for people to participate. Anna, you are also the faculty sponsor for the ECU Pirate Veterans Organization. And I had to ask you before the show started, pirates, what is that all about? And secondary, why is it important for veterans and citizens to get together and talk about war?
Well, East Carolina's mascot, we are the Pirates. So, so our chapter of the Student Veterans of America we're called the Pirate Veterans. And we're hoping to see some veterans participate in this program. It's not to delve into their experiences. It's not to get them to talk. It's not a counseling session. But what we're finding, those of us who work in programs like these, is that when veterans encounter texts from previous wars, they can begin to see how their experiences are unified over time. They're not alone over the course of history, because the things that they experience, whether it's ecstasy, whether it's rage, whether it's survivor's guilt, whether it's pain, whether it's loss, whether it's boredom, when you look at humanities texts about war across time, these are universal themes. So we're hoping that veterans and veterans' families can come together, talk through these texts, and to see that what veterans' families are going through, what veterans go through, it's universal. It's shared across war. It's shared across cultures.
That's interesting. Tell us a little bit about the structure of how these discussions are going to be held.
Okay, so the sessions are going to be at night from 7 to 8:30 in the evening. We have basically broken it up into themes that address some of the important content that we're trying to sort of look at. So we're looking at veteran and warrior identity. So when we talk about Spanish Chamorro Wars, we're talking about the first ideas of a warrior and what they were doing, who their enemy was, what their experience might have been, and we've learned through archaeology and history some of that, and then pulling it forward to today and the veterans and their experience and their identity. And the next few themes are the enemy, the civilian, because we know civilians are impacted. That is something that is readily apparent on Saipan from World War II. We're focusing also on memorialization, and then on conflict heritage, so archaeological sites that are the result of war. So each night we focus on a theme. There will be some readings. It's not a lot. It's small portions of readings that address that theme for the night, and we're just going to have open dialogue about it. We have open-ended questions, and we're going to really kind of delve into those humanities. And so we have film, we have poetry, we have artwork, we have heritage sites, we have memoirs, children's literature. So we have a range of different types of humanities products that we're going to go through and sort of experience and talk about some of these themes.
And in the second half of our show, we'll talk a little bit more about what those readings are. They sound very interesting. You've been here now for almost 10 years off and on, working on different archaeological projects, including the Maritime Heritage Trail. I think maybe that's one of the things you're best well known for, letting us know what's under the surface of the water. And, but what made you decide to take up this project, Jen?
Over several years, I've been focusing a lot on conflict archaeology. The remains of what happens when war occurs, and I think a lot about the people who went through that. And war is on our mind these days, and so one of the things that I'd always wanted to do was work with veterans and have them help with some of the archaeology on site. So I'm working on some side projects trying to get that going, because I think veterans would be, the perfect partner or collaborator, because they understand the military, they understand war machines, and a lot of them are kind of interested in history. And so getting them out to the archaeological sites and helping record sites could be, therapeutic in ways, but also fulfill some, interest and excitement. So I met up with some colleagues that were also interested. Anna's interest, her research is on war, and we spitballed these ideas and decided to apply for the grant. So it's the bringing together of people, the interest in the veterans' experience over time that's really interesting to me.
Anna, what was your interest in this project?
Well, I've been studying war texts for a number of years, and I am the daughter of a Vietnam veteran, the granddaughter of a World War II veteran, and the cousin of an Iraq War veteran. So veteran stories are really important to me, not just studying them, but talking about them in the classroom and keeping attention focused that we're still creating veterans, and we need to understand what they go through. We need to understand what they need when they get home. So that really appealed to me. Plus, I really wanted to visit Saipan.
Well, on the flyer for your event, it says, heritage reminds us of who we are, where we came from, and can even give us clues as to where we are going. Do you think this series of discussions can help the people of the Marianas really understand where we might be going?
Yes, because these are, as Jen's been talking about, these are universal themes. And as Hemingway said, veterans are already humanists. They know better than anybody else how war affects humanity, and on a very personal, face-to-face level. So we're hoping that by talking through how we see each other as friends, and then enemies, and then allies, and then enemies again, maybe we can have some more mature discussions about working together and collaborating rather than responding militaristically as maybe a first impulse, which is the United States has been at war for a long time.
Anna, you have a similar or related project going on at East Carolina University. Tell us about that.
Yes, so ECU was lucky to receive 2 out of 15 grants for this initiative, Dialogues on the Experience of War. And in August, I will be running a bridge program for incoming student veterans. We'll talk through humanities texts about the Civil War, World War I, World War II, Vietnam, and the current wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. So it'll be one of the aims is for veterans to make the transition from military culture to university culture and to see their military identity, how it can inform and help their success as students. So there will be an orientation component to get them ready from habits that they needed on the battlefield to habits that they need in the classroom.
In these kind of discussions, is there one or two particular areas that you feel that initially maybe veterans and veterans don't understand about each other, or that veterans need civilians to understand, and civilians maybe need veterans to understand, that these types of dialogue help bring out?
Yes, I mean the especially in the United States, where only 1% serve on the continent. There is an alarming gap between veteran experience and civilians, and so my hope for this project and the project that I will be running at ECU next month is that we can begin to learn what veterans want and need us to understand about war, and so that we can better welcome them home. We can better work with them through their transition into a peacetime identity, or in my case, a student identity, that we can be more thoughtful about sending them to war and making them veterans in the first place.
Well, Jen, I want to give us at least a couple of opportunities to give the contact information for people who are interested in signing up for the classes this week. So share us that with us, will you?
Okay, so if you wanted to sign up for it, the best thing to do is actually contact the Humanities Office. Send them an email, give them a phone call, let them know. You can also call my cell phone number, which is an off-island cell phone number, but it's 252-561-5122, or email me at my university address, mckinnonje@ecu.edu. We are still taking people as participants. It's a free program. We're providing refreshments and drinks, and so we'll be at American Memorial Park every night through the week, and then on Saturday we'll be doing some site tours. We'll be going out on the boat in the morning if folks would like to go out and snorkel some of the World War II sites. And then we'll be moving around the island in the afternoon, working on looking at some other types of historical sites.
Well, we're going to have another one of your colleagues join us in the second half of the show, but Anna, I'd like to give you an opportunity for final thoughts before you go.
Final thoughts. I am excited to be here. One of the most fascinating aspects about being here is seeing the sites and thinking through what it might be like to live with this kind of legacy of World War II. When you go to the Historic Preservation Office, you visit a Japanese bunker. When you go to the beach, you see a tank. So what is it like to live with war? When do wars really, quote unquote, end? And what is it like to live through their aftermaths?
All right, we're speaking today about the project War in the Pacific, A Difficult Heritage, and we'll be back after this break.
This September, the Northern Marianas Humanities Council, Northern Marianas College, University of Guam, and Guampedia will host the 3rd Marianas History Conference in Saipan. The conference theme, One Archipelago, Many Stories, Milestones in Marianas History, highlights the deep and rich history of the Mariana Islands. It also bridges the political division of the archipelago, which dates to the late 19th century. The conference steering committee is now accepting abstracts under the following general categories: ancient history, including the results of archaeological research; early colonial history in the 17th and 18th centuries; colonial history in the 19th and early 20th centuries; World War II; recent post-war; and oral history and genealogical research. For more information, visit the Northern Marianas Humanities Council website at northernmarianashumanities.org. That's northernmarianashumanities.org.
Welcome back to Your Humanities Half Hour. We're speaking today about War in the Pacific, A Difficult Heritage. And joining us, along with Dr. McKinnon here in the second half of the show, is Dr. Ann Ticknor. She's a co-lead for the project. Ann, tell us, what is your role?
So I am a literacy educator, which means that I have experience teaching people how to be teachers. And so my role in the program is to work with the discussion leaders and to help them take their content knowledge and deliver it to participants in a way that facilitates discussion, and I give them the pedagogical tools, so the teaching tools, how to take that knowledge of content and the resources that we are looking at and reading and viewing, and pose questions and read with a lens of how to engage people in a conversation about those resources, and then also how to facilitate thinking about how the experience of war is a shared human experience.
And that's actually a great tool for anybody. Like, how many times have we tried to like talk to somebody or engage somebody in a conversation and it's like pulling teeth?
Right.
So give us a few quick tips about how you get people to interact when you're in that situation.
Right. Well, one of the big things, and this is the behind the scenes of how teachers know how to teach, is not just thinking about what I have to teach, but how to get people involved in that. So with little kids and up to adults, one of the big things is giving wait time. So once you pose a question as a teacher, or once you read something and you want your students or your participants to talk back, is to allow them to think about it. So for example, I might say, what did you think about the poem that we just read? Any thoughts that you'd like to share? And then wait.
But with today's generation, they might, I would think like, are they thinking about the question I asked, or are they thinking about what they want to do after school?
Right, and it could be both. And so the job is to think about how to take what's happening after school and make it relevant. So to bring them back into the content and to be thinking about giving them that wait time, but then also saying, oh, I hear what you're saying, and bring it back to the content.
And this is why teachers deserve so much respect.
Yes.
Because they have to strategize.
Absolutely. It is a lot of work.
Well, we're going to have some great discussion leaders for this project this week. Jen, share with us who we're going to be spending the evenings with.
Okay, we're spending the evenings with some great people in humanities and history. So we have Genevieve Cabrera, many know on Island, Tina Sablon, Lolly Areola, Jim Pruitt from the Historic Preservation Office, and Fred Camacho. So all these people bring really unique backgrounds and interests. Some are traipsing through the jungle right now. Others are thinking about, heritage sites and how to manage them. And some are doing veterans projects already. So everybody brings sort of their own background to this and their strengths to the program.
So you mentioned earlier in the show that there would be excerpts from different resources to read or view before. How much of a time commitment would you say people would need to make each day before they come for the evening discussion? And by the way, the evening discussion starts at what time at American
It starts at 6 o'clock.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about what we're asking them to review, and a little bit about maybe how much time commitment they would need to make.
So we do have a website that we're sending people to have a look at it. It's cnmiheritage.wordpress.com. And on that website, under the Program Materials button, it shows all the readings and film and whatnot that we're going to be discussing for this week. I would say about an hour of preparation would give you enough time because while we have the full reference for the book, it doesn't mean that you have to read the whole book.
Thank you for making it easy for us.
So we've gone through and picked some small parts out that relate to the theme itself, and so we're going to be asking them to read it with the idea that the theme and the questions that we're going to be asking relate to those specific passages, or we'll be showing a film that we'll then discuss afterwards.
Okay. So you mentioned that one of the categories is veteran and indigenous identity. What are our readings under that?
Oh, so we have a couple things that we've selected out of larger text, and the first one is a graphic novel. And what's really interesting about a graphic novel is the fact that the pictures do a lot of the work, and so we'll have that a few selections out of that.
by graphic novel, for those of us that are a little bit older, you mean comic book? I'm loving this discussion.
There is some similarity to comic books in the sense that there's a reliance on the illustrations, but it's very complex. So I don't want to just put it together with a comic book. But yes, it does have
the author
yes.
and the illustrator.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And then the other is a chapter out of a book by Scott Russell, and it gives quite a bit of information about the island and about the culture of the Chamorros and ancient Chamorro in particular.
Okay, well, Scott Russell is always a great read, of course. And then I was interested to see that one of the items to be read is the speech of Harao. From Guam. I guess this was before the big battle, one of the significant battles or something like that. That would be interesting.
Yeah, I think it is going to be interesting to read this speech in the context of understanding the enemy, because he is really rallying his people around him they've seen the Spanish as enemies, but he's really bringing it, in an emotional context to the foreground to get his people, moving forward to trying to resist the Spanish during that time. So we're really interested in the folks that are going to be in the discussion to think about how does that concept of enemy come about? Well, some of it comes from speeches and listening to other people talk about the anger and how somebody is actually very different from them and what they're doing to them, and so explore that idea of who the enemy is, because oftentimes veterans today have had no contact with their enemy, whereas during the Spanish Chamorro Wars, they were living with the enemy. So there is a different context, but there's still some similarities over time.
And then you mentioned the film, which is Hell in the Pacific. Maybe some of our listeners have heard of that. But this book I've never heard of before. Helmet for My Pillow from Paris Island to the Pacific by Robert Leckie.
Mm-hmm. So that book, along with Eugene Sledge's With the Old Breed, are two memoirs of spending time in the Pacific from guys who served out here, and some may remember the miniseries from HBO, the Pacific miniseries that aired over time. That miniseries was actually based on the memoirs of these two guys who served out in the Pacific.
Oh, okay. And then you mentioned some children's writing, which of course one of the best known is We Drank Our Tears, compiled by Catherine Tooten Puckett.
Right, and that's powerful as well, because as you know, these are stories that are passed down, and they are oral stories that have been retold about spending time in caves during the battles of Saipan, and they're being told to children, and then the children are transcribing these stories, and oftentimes illustrating them. So they're very powerful to have that intergenerational connection, but then also that connection to the interpretation from the younger generation as well. And the second one is by Beau Flood, and Beau Flood has written Warriors in the Crossfire, and it's a young adult novel, so the characters in the story it's historical fiction, and it's about that same time as well. And they're two young boys who are cousins, but one is a local boy and one is not. And so talking about how their friendship is tested during that time as well.
Okay. This book I've never heard of before, by Sadako Kurihara. Mm-hmm. We Shall Bring Forth New Life.
So it's actually a poem, and she was around during she was on the mainland in Japan when the bomb was dropped, and it's a poem written about her experience of hiding when at the end of World War II when the atomic bomb was dropped.
Is she the lady who was recently visited Saipan in the last 2 or 3 years, I think?
I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
I can't say.
Okay. And then some of your other publications for the reading?
Sure. Yeah, we have the other two themes are memorialization and conflict heritage. So a lot of that will focus on how we memorialize war and then what are the remnants of them. So Genevieve Cabrera wrote the history for a book that we published on the World War II Heritage Trail, which is great because we have a Chamorro, an indigenous writer who's writing the history. And we're going to talk about maybe the difference between, an indigenous person writing a history versus, the victor of war. And those those histories can be very different. And we'll look at Ambush at Saipan, which was a painting that was made by an artist that was hired by the Marine Corps. And he was out here in Saipan during the battle, and he depicted war through painting and drawing. And this is a painting of the final attack on the U.S. We're going to kind of pull that apart and think about the colors and how the arrangements are significant in the painting itself, and have another film, Oba, The Last Samurai.
And then, of course, looking at some trail guides, posters, and websites from the work that you did previously.
Yep.
And tell us a little bit about the tour on Saturday, and then there's going to be a ceremony.
Yes, so the tour on Saturday is going to be a snorkel tour in the morning for those who want to go out on the snorkel tour. I know not everybody wants to get on a boat, but we will accommodate folks. So if they want to go out on the boat, we'll snorkel on some of the underwater World War II sites that have been put on the Heritage Trail. And then we'll come back in and we'll tour a few sites on land that Jen and Fred are lining up for us to have a look at. So caves and some of the memorial sites like Bonsai, Suicide, and the Veteran Cemetery. So that is Saturday. And then we'll have sort of a commemoration, like a completion. And so we'll have a little bit of a ceremony for folks who have completed it. We have some really nice challenge coins that we've created that we're going to give out. Challenge coins are significant for the veteran population because they can be traded or exchanged. And they typically mean that you've accomplished something or you've been part of a unit. And we really want people to feel like they've been part of a unit in this discussion program. The discussion program is not going to end here. We're hoping to run another one later on in the year, perhaps in October or November, and that will be run by all the local discussion leaders. So we'll go away, and everything that they've learned about leading discussion will happen again a second time. So if folks miss the session, we'll run it again, but we sure hope that they'll come out this time.
And obviously you've been one of the key people in training the discussion leaders, but I didn't get to ask you, what was your interest in becoming involved with this project?
Well, multiple things. One is the chance to work with Jen and Anna. That was very exciting. But then also working with veterans and thinking about coming to Saipan and working with local veterans as well. That's something, both of those are two new experiences for me. And so it was exciting to think about how the work that I do training teachers and thinking about identities, who we are and what makes us who we are, how that might be navigated for veterans living on Saipan. And so that was the combination, all of that together.
So Jen, give us the contact information again, and also let's recognize any partners that have come together with you on this project.
Yeah, so we've partnered with the Humanities Office and Historic Preservation Office on this. They've helped us out a lot, wrote letters of recommendation and for the grant, and have really just facilitated setting everything up. So we'd like to shout out and thank them. And so if folks want to participate, they can contact the Humanities Office on their phone or via email. If it's Sunday and they can't get a hold of somebody, call on Monday. We'll have spaces. My phone number is 252-561-5655. 5122, and they can also go on our website and click participate.
And start reading today.
Start reading today. The other thing is if they can't make it the whole night, if they can make the majority of the nights in the day, we'll take some people on if they have like a small conflict with one of the nights or something like that. So don't get discouraged if you can't make it every single night.
Okay. And any final thoughts before you go?
Well, we're looking forward to working with the participants tomorrow, and the discussion leaders have a wealth of knowledge, and so we're very excited to put that together and to be here.
Jen?
I'm just excited to be back, and this is kind of this is one of the ways that things can segue. So working on heritage and now using heritage in the programming of veterans programs, it's just exciting to see the development of that, and happy to be back and working with my friends on the island.
Well, we've been speaking today with Dr. Jennifer McKinnon, project leader for the War in the Pacific, a difficult history project, as well as Dr. Anna Froula. She's a co-leader for the project, and Dr. Ann Ticknor, also a co-leader. Thank you, ladies, for your time, and I hope you have a wonderful program.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
This has been your Humanities Half Hour. I'm Catherine Perry Harris.
This program was supported by a We the People grant awarded to the Northern Marianas Humanities Council from the National Endowment for the Humanities. Any views, findings, conclusions, or recommendations expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily represent those of the National Endowment for the Humanities or the Northern Marianas Humanities Council.